I'm Eric Shepard, and we are back with another AI choir video. In this discussion, I really want to focus on the value of writing easy and approachable choral music. Stuff that amateur choirs can do, parish choirs can do, choirs that maybe not everyone in it reads music, that they can do and can do a good job of. It's actually really difficult to write music that is easy for amateur singers to sing, but is also interesting from a kind of 21st century compositional art music idiom. So the piece we're going to look at in this video is a Missa Brevis that I wrote a few months ago. Missa Brevis is Latin for short mass. We're dealing with a truncated version of the communion setting to be sung during communion services. The text that we're dealing with here is the communion setting according to the Anglican Book of Common Prayer. In the Missa Brevis, you've got three distinct sections. You've got Kyrie, Sanctus and Benedictus, and the Agnus Dei. In this video, we're going to look specifically at the Kyrie setting that I wrote. I will probably make subsequent videos talking about the Sanctus and Benedictus and the Agnus Dei. All three of these settings are fairly approachable and easy to sing, right? We've got easy choral parts, and a lot of the musical interest is driven by the organ accompaniment. I've shared a number of different Kyrie settings that I've done using AI on social media and stuff, and I often get people commenting being like, oh, the AI does a terrible job with the Latin diction, and I just want to say, my guy, this is Greek, this is not Latin. Kyrie is the only part of the Anglican communion service, according to the Book of Common Prayer, that is not in English, it is in Greek. So this is a text that screams ternary form, right? You've got Kyrie eleison the first time for your A section, Christe eleison for your B section, then you return for Kyrie eleison for A section. It's a great example of a text that can really guide the form of a piece, especially of a small piece, right? The Kyrie that we're going to listen to here now is about a minute long, so having that form in mind and being driven by the text is really, really important here. So let's have a listen to the piece and talk a bit about what is going on here.
Christe eleison, Christe eleison, Christe eleison, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison.
So we are in the score here, and we're going to take a look at what is going on in the Kyrie of this Missa Brevis. So first of all, we're dealing with a ternary form, right? The text lends itself really well to ternary form. Unison setting, simple choral part, simple melodies to learn. So our organ is starting off here by foreshadowing what the choir is going to have to sing. This does a number of things. Formally, this is a short piece. Having musical ideas that are consistent across our A section, our B section, and then our final A section is going to help the piece hang together. But it also puts the tune that the choir is going to have to sing in their ears, right? So, you know, if you're a singer who's maybe not a confident reader and you hear this organ part sing exactly what you're going to have to sing a bar later, it's going to increase the likelihood of them having a confident entry and coming in and doing a good job of their part. To bring that musical interest, that complexity, a lot of that's going to have to be driven by the organ accompaniment here. The organ part in this setting is much more difficult than the choral part. There's a lot more going on in the organ accompaniment here than in the choir parts. It's much easier to lean on the skill of an organist, especially if you've got a good organist, because there are lots of church choirs that have a highly trained, skilled organist, but a choir that maybe not everyone in it can read music. But even if that's not the case, right, it's much easier and more practical for an organist to have to go and practice their part and look at it on their own than it is to iron out something difficult in a rehearsal, right? So the idea here is to save rehearsal time. So we're coming up on the first example here of how the organ accompaniment can be used to really drive home some of that musical interest, and that has to do with the modulation that happens at the bottom of the first page here. So, you know, we're starting off with this Kyrie musical idea that's been foreshadowed by the organ part. We have a bit of an organ interlude that stylistically is the same. There's some thematic ideas borrowed from that introductory tune. But then we have a pretty stark modulation, right? We're going from 4 flats to 2 sharps, right? We're going from A flat major to D major. Very chromatic modulation that if you were looking at this and from a theoretical perspective, you might say, oh, well, that's quite a modulation. But the fact of the matter is that modulation happens in the organ part before the choir has to come in, and the choir's coming in with exactly the same tune that they sang before, just starting on a different note, right? We're essentially just taking what the choir had up here on their first Kyrie, and for the second Kyrie, they're just transposing it. So if I were rehearsing this with an amateur choir, I wouldn't even have them sing it with the accompaniment. I'd teach them this tune first, and you could even do that by rote. As much as you want to have people who are good readers, you could just sing them this tune a number of times, and then have them sing it starting on an E flat, right? And then down here we have them singing it starting on a B, right? You might think, oh, that's a bit of an interval shift, right? That could be difficult to make that leap, but they're not making a leap of an E flat to a B natural, right? They just need to hear the B natural. That's my starting note, and then they come in with this tune. What the organ has essentially enabled us to do here is to have a lot of harmonic interest at really no extra price for difficulty when it comes to the choral parts. So we're on our second page here, right after the first Kyrie section has ended. We come in here with an organ interlude, and we're bringing in some rhythmic contrast here. There are some time changes, some interesting rhythms happening in this section, but they're all being driven by the organ accompaniment, right? The choir doesn't really need to worry about these, right? So we have this kind of percussive organ bit here, a time change into 7/8, but the choir doesn't really have to think about that. An organist might have to count, might have to practice a bit, but that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And then we come in here with the choral part down here, and they're just singing. They've got 3 notes, sort of plain chant vibe, similar to what we had, but a little bit darker. But the choral part here is dead simple and really easy for them to sing. And similar to what happened in the A section, with the B section, they actually have the same tune, just starting on different notes. So throughout this piece, there are really only 2 melodies that the choir has to learn. So in the A section, we had the organ driving harmonic interest. In the B section, we have the organ driving rhythmic interest. Things that make the piece sound interesting and sound like a piece of genuine choral repertoire without asking very much of the choir. All right, so that was the Kyrie from the Missa Brevis. I hope you enjoyed the piece and took something away from the discussion. A few key points to hit home here before we end things off. Getting back to what I said earlier about the difference between music that is simple and music that is easy, right? This is an easy piece to sing, but it is not a simple piece. This is something that highly skilled singers could do a really good job of, but you could also give it to singers who don't know how to read music. Writing music that sets a choir up for success in such a way that, you're taking amateur singers, inexperienced singers, and making them sound much better than they are and enabling them to do that, I think is a really good thing. It's a really underrated skill. On the AI front here, there were a few small things in this, but overall I was pretty happy with how this AI demo turned out. If you're a choral composer who's interested in learning how to make these types of AI demos, leave a comment, reach out, connect. I want to help other musicians leverage some of these technologies to share their work. If you learned something in this video here, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and also stay tuned for subsequent videos about the rest of the Missa Brevis. I'm probably going to make videos similar to this about the Sanctus and Benedictus, and then a third one about the Agnus Dei in fairly short order. Similar discussion to what we had here with the Kyrie, but just about the rest of the Missa Brevis. I hope you enjoyed the piece and took something away from this discussion.